now that it's not choppy anymore, I'll turn it off. What's up, everybody? Thanks for coming on over. That's just a little random test edit that I did a little bit ago. Just kind of messing around. That's a 5-inch rig that's kind of built for long range. 2407 motors, big pitchy props. You know, pretty simple thing. My name's Aaron Ciotti. Most people call me Ciotti. You can call me Earl. Let's dive right into it. Housekeeping stuff. Patreon link is below in the description. For a couple bucks a month, you can jump in there. That is the spot where I drop lots and lots and lots of tech and stuff that I've found while sort of farting around on Facebook and whatnot. So yeah, jump over there. Really cool group of people. We've been having a really good time kind of chit-chatting here and there about what's happening in the micro world. And Snoopy, we'll get to that. So yeah, if you want to come hang out and join Team Ciotti, hop on over there. A couple bucks a month, you'll be in. What else? Ciotti FPV on Instagram, Facebook, and here on YouTube. And I think that's about it. Affiliate links too. Affiliate links down in the description. I don't really know how they work, but apparently if you click one and then you buy a bunch of stuff on Amazon, I make something. So if you remember to do that, awesome. If you don't remember to do that, I don't blame you. I wouldn't remember either. All right, so we're good to go. Let's do some shout outs. You guys are in here early. You guys rule. Proton to Go is here. Nobby is here. Budget FPV. JTJ250. Gel Captain. Gel's got 2 lines of text. Let's read it. Ultralight build with this frame. Gel, it's not going to let you post the link to the frame, so just put the name to the frame, and then I'll pull up Chrome, we'll look it up. Who else do we have? Stefan H. Steve SMC FPV wins the award for the longest YouTube name I've ever seen. Good on you, Stefan. Super is here. What is up, Super? Nobby again. KGKG. Houseblog. Supercell. Kirk Rollins. John Atkin. Nobby again. Engage. LTLKLR. Lit Liquor? Lit Liquor Gamer? What is that? What that is? Lit Liquor Gamer? Daryl Hickman. Corey B. Houseblog is in the house. Supercell's thinking of buying a Beta FPV F4 20 amp all-in-one and the Beta FPV 8X frame kit with the new 1103 motors and making a new one. Super, check out Rugi's toothpick frame. He did the majority of the R&D with the toothpicks and whatnot, and he just does a hell of a job designing frames. So check his frame out. Last I looked, it wasn't in stock, so if you need something right now, you're going to be getting something else. But if you can wait, his frame is sick, and he's also got a couple of the best motors available. He says that the AMAX motors, I think they're 1303 maybe. He says those are currently the champions on lightweight bi-blade 3-inch props. So give that a look. We've got Richard Warwick as well. Tiago Ramos is here. How are you, Tiago? Mr. Sprinkles. Ooh, Juan is coming in with a long one. He's fighting for the title of longest YouTube name. It's Juan Jose Rodriguez Gomez. Very cool, Juan. Glad to have you. Bunch of new people. Thanks for coming over, everybody that's new. This is how we do it here on this channel. It's fairly kind of loose. I try to answer as many questions as I can, but I also try to have kind of like something to do or talk about or topic or editing or something like that. So yeah, glad to have you. Thanks for coming over. Really appreciate that. I don't know how to end that thought, so I'll just start reading more shout-outs. Chris E, Corey B, Proton to Go again, Espander, RTK, John Atkin, Jamie Armstrong, the the Great Golden Spoon, Great Golden. Give me the story behind that name. I got to know. The Great Golden Spoon. Kirk Rollins, Enzo Padira. Great first name, Enzo. Love it. John Atkin, Chrissy, Corey B. Drone Experts is here. RTK. We're getting there. We're getting there. Papa Doc, Ty K, Richard Warwick again. House Blog in the house. Snoopy RC. We're going to talk about the shirt in a second. Ty K, Chris E, Jel Van Loo has a question that we're going to talk about in a minute. Ben Watkins. Super again. Super's going to call me Bobby. That's fine. I've been called worse. MBFPV is here. Budget FPV is in the house. Papa Doc again. My chat just did the thing where it went flying forward. Bad FPV. Shane Duggar is in the house. Shane, how's the Slamdalian, brother? Gel again. Jay Chan is here. Captain Calgary, that's a cool name. Quad McJelly Drone, Harsha, Kirk Rollins, Bill Clark, Corey B, James Parkin, Gel Van Loo, Ben Watkins, Budget again, Nunya Business is here. Mongo, Ty K, ZDK is in the house. EBR FPV, Kirk Rollins, Puffy, Papa Doc, Budget FPV, Super Kirk, Kirk Rollins, Explosive Fruits, Daniel Grafton, Quad MC Jelly Drone. Man, you guys got some awesome names today. Arthur and James Coroneos. I'm going to stop there. If you want to get your name read, you got to say something early in this stream. So let's see what questions I just blasted by. Oh, my shirt. All right, here's the shirt. I'm going to challenge you guys. Somebody explain the shirt. There has to be somebody that understands this shirt out there. Because I know that... I'm not going to give a hint. Well, yeah, it's not much of a hint. I know there's a lot of car guys that also fly. So I'm actually really interested. Shane, you're breaking motor bells, huh? Damn. Try the Zing 2306s. The Zing Unibel 2306s. They are tough as nails from what I've heard and seen. All right, you guys aren't answering the question. Yeah, Arthur's close. AX as in autocross. Autocross is a form of motorsport that... screw it. I'll just show you. Basically, in my old autocross region, we used to get 8 runs, and only the fastest run counts. So my philosophy... Hey, Noah, how are you? My philosophy was always to just run absolutely full tilt the entire time, kind of like go at 11/10ths, and 1 out of those 8 runs will possibly be clean and fast as hell. So yeah, that's how I used to play the game, and the course workers have to chase the cones down, so they used to call me the murderer, the cone murderer extraordinaire. So that's what this shirt means. Here's autocross. Let me switch the screen. Here you guys go. I'm going to fast forward this a bunch to an outside of the car camera. So there's in the car. Here is outside of the car, where you can actually see the racetrack a little bit better. It is the cheapest form of motorsports and one of the most technically demanding. If you can... Hey, thanks, Tech Chef. So there you go, down on the bottom left. That's what it looks like. Big-ass empty parking lots or runways, anywhere with a huge patch of asphalt. We would show up there at 6 a.m., build the racetrack. It's fully insured. It's a big thing. It's a big deal. There's every single one of you guys has a local autocross region with plenty of guys that are out there racing every weekend. It's 1 car out at a time, so you don't have to worry about some other asshole smashing into you. And yeah, super, super fun. If you're into cars and you want to actually learn how to drive, start autocrossing. All right. The Miata is going slowly. We will talk about that in a second. I can't believe I remembered to switch the scene. Do I have the keystroke? I got to set the keystrokes up. All right. Let's hammer a bunch of these questions. It's 3:12. Yeah, I'm going to blow through a bunch of these questions. And then we will do a little bit of work over here. I'm going to pretty much give like one, I'm going to try not to go on rants with these questions, which will probably work horribly. I can typically not do that. Gel Van Loo asks, has a stuttering motor when he arms, and after a second or two it stops and the ESC makes a startup beep. Is there something I can do, or is the motor smoked? If it's smoked, is there something I can do? Gel, great question. So your ESC is more than likely smoked. The motor is probably fine. The motors are fairly binary in that they either work or they don't. The only time I've ever seen a motor twitch is if you put the screws in too far and you push the screw up against the up against the windings. That's the only time I've ever seen a motor actually twitch. But anything's possible. I just really every time I've had an ESC fail, that's exactly what happens. So I think your ESC is shot. It sucks, I know, but swap it out. Try to not use turtle mode so much. So when, not necessarily just turtle mode, but if a prop is bound up and it can't spin, and you tell the ESC to send that motor power, it, even though you're just at idle, it sends a ton of power over, and it really wears it puts wear and tear on the MOSFETs. So the less you turtle mode and or the more careful that you are about it, you can still turtle mode, but just do it like with a little blip of throttle. If you don't think the prop is spinning, don't spin that prop. Try one of the other ones. Just be really careful with that. That's one of the easiest ways to blow up an ESC, is to put power to a motor that is fully bound up and can't move at all. All right, Ben Watkins asks, what color wire should I use for VTX? Red, black, yellow, green, white? I always use yellow. Yellow is sort of like the universal color for video. So the video line from the camera to the FC and the FC of the VTX for me is always yellow, and that's probably your safest bet because it is kind of understood that yellow is video. If you look at like a television, and it's got the yellow, white, and red cables for audio and video, the yellow is the video. So yeah, there you go. All right. What else do we have? Budget FPV says the iFlight Turbo B120RS and the iFlight 16x16 F4 stack just gets it on 1104 7600 kV on 2S budget. That's probably a ripper. Papa Doc says Earl is my middle name. Nice. Ty. All right, so we're talking amongst ourselves. All right. I'm going to blast through these. I'm going to miss a couple of these, so just tag at Ciotti FPV if I missed your question, because I'm going fast. I'm trying to get to the bottom here. Hello from Spain, Abda FPV. Very cool. All right. Ty K has a crazy BF3 whoop that the FreeSky signal cuts out intermittently. That's annoying. Conformal coating didn't save it from wet grass. Is the board toast, or can I solder a spare FreeSky receiver? I would solder up another FreeSky receiver if you have it. If you have it, that's a free troubleshoot. The FCs are usually pretty good about getting wet and not blowing up. It's salt water that's really the problem, but fresh water is usually okay. But I mean, it's not great for them, so it could be that. But yeah, I would definitely solder up another receiver and see if it works. You'll build a second or third or fourth whatever rig at some point, and you'll need a receiver. So even if you don't have another receiver, I'd just snag one real quick and solder it up, see if you're good. Right, Ben Watkins is using the TBS Pro 32 Nano with the mounting board. Ooh, that mounting board's cool. So it's a little different than what I've been used to before. How do you like that mounting board, Ben? I love that idea. Is that the mounting board that has the Pro 32 and the Crossfire Nano on it? If so, that's pretty slick. I like that setup. I never 20x20 mount any VTX or receivers, so I would never technically use that unless I did do like a toothpick style build, which I really need to do. All right, Bad FPV says, thoughts on the Tarsier 4K as an alternative to carrying a GoPro. First and foremost, even though the Tarsier does record in 4K, it looks like hell in 4K. You're way better off running that thing in 2.7 or even 1080. This is true with a lot of those little point and shoot cameras. They'll market them as having this humongous resolution, but at that humongous resolution, it's very noisy and it just looks like shit. Whereas a GoPro, you run that thing at 4K, you're getting 4K. So right there, the Tarsier is absolutely not an alternative to carrying a GoPro. That being said, the Tarsier is awesome. At 2.7 and at 1080, it's fantastic. It is the best I've seen, and I haven't seen the Runcam Hybrid yet, but it is the best that I've seen for micros. On a 5-inch rig that's got the ass to carry the GoPro, I'm carrying a GoPro around. Just because there's a huge difference in quality, and the GoPro also doesn't have nearly as many jello issues. You gotta be really banged up to have jello in a GoPro, whereas with a Tarsier, if you've got a prop that's bent a little bit, you're gonna have a bunch of jello. So that's my thoughts on that. Gel Airblade Intrepid mini frame. Gel, were you asking me what I think of that frame? If you were, I don't like H frames. The FPV industry moved away from H frames a long time ago because they are a lot weaker than an X frame. When you think about when you're coming in hot, most of your crashes happen when you're flying somewhere, right? You hit a pole and it spins off, you hit the ground. All of these crashes are putting force. All of the crashes that happen in that scenario are putting the force in this direction, right? So if the force is going straight up here and you've got this arm at a 45, it's going to do a really good job at absorbing that force and putting it into the middle of the X. Whereas with an H frame, with the arm coming out like this, when you hit, that arm just wants to bend. It doesn't have nearly as much strength. So those arms will, they just have a tendency to break a lot easier than an X frame. When it comes to micros, I try to base everything around what the 5-inch community has already figured out. They have spent years and years and years trying to perfect this formula, and trying to perfect a formula, and this has become the formula. 99% of the frames that are made are like this in one way or another. So with micros, I follow the same thing. This design really does a good job protecting the camera. It allows you to put the battery on top. The flight controller ESC VTX receiver, they fit really well in this setup. It just really, really, really works well. So even on my micros, you'll notice that they're pretty much all Alien style, tiny little builds. I do fart around with different frames from time to time, and they're never as sturdy. They're never as strong as a straight up Alien style X frame. So yeah, use the R&D that the 5-inch community has spent tons of time and God knows how much money perfecting with your micro frame purchases, in my opinion. I'm just one guy. That's just based off of my experience in this hobby. Building wacky weirdo frames is super fun and they're super cool looking. But I'm to a point now where the performance is much more important to me than anything else, to be honest. So there you go. All right. Derpa derpa derpa. Airblade Intrepid Mini Ultralight Toothpick. Jesus, that's the longest frame name I've ever heard. So that is not the frame that I was talking about. So let's look it up. Let's see if images will grab it. Come on, come on, come on. Yeah, screw it. Hey, an X frame. There we go. But it's an X frame with the carbon fiber weave in the wrong direction. Airblade, come on. Come on. Nguyen, please. Please stop it. Please stop making your frames with the carbon fiber weave in the wrong direction. Oh, guys, it's about to be 2020. It's about to be 2020. Why is this still happening? Why? The carbon fiber is 45 degrees the wrong direction on this frame. The only possible reason for doing that is it's easier to squeeze more frames onto a sheet of carbon, so you can produce your frames cheaper, but the difference in strength of the arms is absolutely ridiculous. If you have an arm with the carbon fiber like this, and the same arm with the carbon fiber in the correct direction, which is basically, where's the stingy frame? That one's the easiest to see it. What did I do with it? There it is. This is the direction that the carbon fiber needs to go on the arm. If it doesn't go this direction, the arm is going to be very, very weak. And let me get the focusing going here. Let's go super duper macro focus. And all right, let me see if I can get a little reflection action. There you go. That's what the carbon fiber needs to look like on your arms in order for that arm to be worth a damn, in my opinion. What this is showing you is that the carbon... hold up. Let's get this focus fixed. Okay, so what that is showing you is that the carbon fibers, each individual carbon fiber is running this way, and then on the next layer, they're all running this way. The ones that are running this way, those are the important fibers. And the longer those fibers are, the stronger they are. When you cut frames like most Airblade, I don't know if I've ever seen. Okay, so the Airblade H frame, it has the carbon fiber in the same orientation as this, and in that case it works because the arms are horizontal, right? But on any X frame like this, it's just no good. So yeah, that's actually really important, guys. When you're buying a frame, that is like if you look for nothing else in a frame, look for the direction that the fibers are going on the arms. That is hands down the most important thing on a frame that's actually going to fly good and crash good. And fly good because the arms are not so floppy. When it's 45 degrees like this, the arms are all bendy and shit. So when your motors are starting to wiggle around, it's going to just create this big tuning fork with all the arms, and it's just going to be a hot mess. Back when I used to run Airblade frames, I had so much trouble tuning them because of this. And when I switched over to frames with the carbon fiber pointing the correct direction, a lot of that went away, and tuning became a lot easier, and the durability went through the roof. So there you go. If you already have that frame, sorry, maybe try to move it along to somebody else. But yeah, it's just gonna be, and it's also a unibody. So when those arms break, and they will break, you're gonna have to tear the whole thing down, which is just super annoying. For me, carbon fiber in the right direction and replaceable arms. Those are the two big things that I look for. Because I crash really hard. So a unibody, as much as I love the idea of a unibody and the fact that it raises the prop line up a little bit, the amount of work to pull that thing apart and rebuild it when you break an arm is just not worth it for me. So there you go. That's how I pick frames. You pick frames on whatever you want, whatever's most important to you, but I'm going to give you knowledge from a lot of crashing, a lot of experience, a lot of flying. What you do with it is on you. No wrong answers. If you love this frame, rip it. Just don't crash it super hard, because I think you'll get annoyed with the arms breaking a lot. All right. I am going to do a couple more questions, and then we're going to dive into the actual topics here. I'm going to miss a bunch of these questions, so you guys are going to have to re-ask them and tag me when you do it. Shane, if you've been breaking those Hype Train motor bells, that's pretty impressive. You're doing some work, brother, because those are strong. Those are that generation of Hype Train motor was made by T-Motor, and they make really strong motors. That's like a titanium shaft, 4mm shaft, Ezo bearings, and the top of the bell design is pretty good. Some of the newer motors are Unibell, which Zing actually did on their micro motors even. And this is admittedly a lot stronger. The one-piece bell design is definitely stronger. So look for motors that have that if you're breaking those, because that's really the only way that you're going to get more durability than those Hype Train motors. And if you'll notice, the new Hype Train motors are one-piece bell designs. And They are not gonna say that. They are one-piece bell designs. Oh no, it's common knowledge. They're not made by T-Motor anymore. Yeah, yeah. Everybody knows who the new Hype Train motors are made by. All right. Great Golden Spoon says the account was created ironically 10 years ago by friends, coworkers, because my dad is the CEO. That's awesome, man. I love it. That is awesome. Okay. Bloppa 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 bleepa bloopa blah. So how do you clean motors? Ciati FPV Blitz FPV asks. I grab using it, but you know that Funtac stuff, the blue shit that you used to stick your posters on the wall with when you were a kid. Get some of that stuff. Take the where the hell? Come on. Take the motor bell off and force that Funtac shit all up in here. And you push it up and it'll get all up in between the little crevices of the magnets and whatnot, and it'll pull any this. I have to do this every time I fly in a spot with metallic dust, because the little pieces of iron or whatever the hell it is will stick to the magnets and jam the motor up. But that Funtac will yank it all right back out. And then I also just use a toothbrush and just hammer on it as much as I can with a toothbrush. Really good question. Nabi is retracting more messages. Awesome. All right. Nice. Great Golden Spoon Autocross Mount Hood. Very cool. All right. I think we're pretty much good to go. Oh, nope. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Alcohol is good, too. Yeah. Alcohol is real good. Marcel Robert says, Ciati, read the note. Oh, there it is. I was about to say, where's the note? We have been assured by the factory that the inner carbon fiber layers are laid at a 45-degree angle so the arm is cut along the weave. The outer carbon fiber layers are for decorative purposes. Oh, and that's the outer carbon fiber layer being for decorative purposes is absolutely true. Let's jump back over here. I'm assuming that it says that's... Oh, look at that. Why would they... I don't know, man. That seems a little suspect. So what they're saying is that for some reason the cosmetic layers, the top and the bottom layers, have been laid on there at a 45-degree angle to the rest of it, and I've never ever seen that. If that's true, that's great, and this frame, in my opinion, becomes usable. But I don't know. I mean, my big issue with that is there's no reason to do that. There's absolutely no reason for any carbon fiber manufacturer to take the top and the bottom cosmetic layers and rotate them 45 degrees. That's actually a terrible idea, because the whole point of those cosmetic layers is to show where the weave is going. So I mean, if that's the case, that's great, but I'm not buying it. That's weird. That's very weird that they said that. Moving on, Daniel Grafton says he's got a Diatone GTB 339 that keeps flying away. He's running Betaflight 4.1. Filters are default. Please help. Daniel, I'm going to refer you actually to my Patreon. For $3, you can jump onto my Patreon. I have a couple really good articles, little posts that I've written, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs, talking about how to reduce motor heat, and that's the same thing you're dealing with because it's all vibration related. And there's another one on... That's the big one you want to look for. So for $3, you can go in there and grab that, post in there, ask me questions there, message me, and then if you want, you can just jump off, and it'll only have cost you $3. But what I will tell you is that I can almost guarantee you it's a hardware problem. You've got a motor with a banged up bell that's vibrating. You've got, you might have bearings that are shot. You might have a flight controller that's not soft mounted good enough. you might have a flight controller with an ICM gyro rather than a MPU 6000 gyro. There's a lot of different things that could be wrong. But like I said, I can almost guarantee you that is a hardware problem. That's not a tuning problem. If you try to tune that out, you're going to cripple that quad, and it's going to have a horrible PID tune on it, which is why I always attack hardware issues first. If the whole hardware system is working right, a stock tune will actually be like very loose and very conservative. Whereas if you've got, and then you can push the tune from there and get something that really, really flies good. So I've said this a bunch of times on the live streams. Stock Betaflight 4.1 tune, that should be totally fine. If that's not fine, don't blame it on the tune. Don't blame it on Betaflight. Betaflight 4.0, they were not as conservative. They pushed the factory tune because they wanted it to have a similar experience to Flyduino, KISS, and Flight 1. But a lot of people had flyaways like that. So on Betaflight 4.1, they went back to a more conservative PID tune for the stock tune, just to give you a little bit of background there. All right. Great Golden Spoon says you're correct, but it could have offset layers inside. But yeah, I doubt it. But you should offset plies by 45 degrees for that application. To just kind of round that out, something cool that I saw, Bob Rugi, Kebab, did an interview with a U.S. carbon fiber manufacturer, and that guy, I forget his name, but that guy talked about, so this is what we've got now for carbon fiber. This is standard carbon fiber, 90 degrees. There is carbon fiber that you can get called quasi-isotropic, and instead of just this, they put another layer here and another layer there. The problem with that is you have less layers going in that long direction, so it's not as strong. What this guy is doing, he's running, he's doing his own layups of the carbon. He's running them straight up and down for the arm, and then he's going 45 degrees this way, 45 degrees that way, and no 90. And that is perfect for an arm, because the arm doesn't use that 90 degree, the carbon fiber that's going this direction doesn't do shit in a quad arm. The only thing it can possibly do is if you take like a really bad slam in this direction, just in this direction, those would prevent it from snapping like that. But that doesn't really happen often. These arms are usually wider than they are tall, so that really doesn't happen. I'm really interested in that carbon. Apparently it's a lot more expensive because it's not just being hammered out and mass produced in China. But if that becomes a thing and it is cheap, that would really help. You know what that would really help with too is, and what our current arms don't do well, is protect us from rotational. So one of the worst things that happens when a motor bell bends is that it starts rotating the arm. The arms will also do that worse when they start to delaminate. That's how I can tell, and I'm going to show you guys in a minute. When I do like a post-flying gear check, that's how I can tell if an arm is delamming, actually, by twisting the motors to induce that weak direction of force being put on the arm. So yeah, having 45 degrees would really help that, right? Because on that twisting, it would be wanting to push the carbon fibers this way, and they're going to be a little bit longer in that direction. Right now, the only fibers that are helping in that twist direction are the ones that are going 90 degrees, and they're also very short. That's the other thing that you want to think of, right? A really short little carbon fiber rod isn't nearly as strong as a longer one. So there's I know I just covered about 80 different things, but there you go. Chris E. asks, what lightweight 3-inch top mount frame would you recommend? It's going to be the CB3, which you can get over on the Rotorius Underground Facebook group. Just throw a new post up, say, hey, I want to buy a CB3. Somebody help me out. And the guy that runs Rotorius, Eckhart, will probably see it. Or just message me if that doesn't work. But this is the one. This is the only one I've found that has all the things I'm looking for. Good camera protection, good motor protection. So I have to apologize. I didn't notice something about the B-roll frame, the X-Hover B-roll frame, and I've been recommending it. And for anybody that's bought it, I apologize if you break a lot of motors. I didn't realize that that frame doesn't have any motor protection on it. Instead of having this little motor protecting spike here, it's just rounded off. So if you hit, and that the frame's not meant to be a basher, but if you can see with the extra little bit of carbon there, when the let me hold it over here. Let me twist my hand. There we go. There we go. Wait. Yeah, there it is. So see, the carbon is gonna hit. The carbon is still gonna hit. The carbon is still gonna hit. Now finally the motor is gonna hit. So from here all the way around, that's all carbon that's going to take that hit and it's going to save the motor. Whereas the B-roll frame, it just cuts off right after the screw holes, and you're going to blow up a lot of motors that way. So yeah, I can't really recommend that B-roll frame anymore, which is a shame because X-Hover makes a hell of a frame. Tack is here. What's up, brother? How you doing, Tack? What's new? All right. Hey, look at that. I'm somewhat caught up. Puffy says, will you get the new Ethics flat rat motors? Oh, the 1507 2800s. The magnet gap is huge. Really, Puffy? That's interesting. Probably not. On 4S with micros, I get 0 sag. So that's why I went from 4S to 6S on 5-inch rigs, because I was getting quite a bit of sag on 4S. So yeah, if there's no sag, going up in voltage can technically actually hurt you. I'm not going to get into it, but if you talk to Ryan Harrell, I should say Ryan Harrell has explained it to me in a way that makes sense. My father has also talked me through it. He's been an electrical engineer for 30 plus years. He worked on a plasma fusion reactor. So pretty much the two smartest people that I know have told me that. So I'll just take it at face value. I don't have a super good idea of how, like the inner workings of electrons, right? But yeah. So the other problem with 6S on a micro is that the batteries are going to become a lot heavier because you can't drop the mAh down low enough. I run 4S 450s on the majority of my micros. So the 6S equivalent, so 6S is 50% more cells. So 450, cut it in half, 220, 270, is it 275? I think it's 275. So to get a battery that weighs the same as the 4S 450, I think it would have to be a 6S 275 mAh, which doesn't exist. And even the 300 mAh batteries, those individual cells, they seem to not be quite big enough. There seems to be like a minimum mAh per cell in the battery that below that minimum, the batteries just don't work worth a shit, right? Think of Tiny Whoop batteries. Think of how badly they sag. They're a tiny little mAh, 250 mAh, 200 mAh, nowadays 300, 350. But yeah, so for somebody building a Cinewhoop that is going to run a huge battery, okay, now those 6S motors make a lot of sense, because you can, screw it, you're not building a freestyle rig. But I haven't really built one of those yet, although the Acrobat is probably going to turn into a Cinebrat. So maybe. No, I won't. I still won't, because there's no sag. There's no advantage in my opinion. And yeah, on these T-Motor 1507s, it'll be totally fine on 4S. Great question though, man. That's something that I have to explain all the time. And I will absolutely admit that I have not tried 6S on a micro. But again, these 4S 450s don't sag. So I don't see an advantage of 6S with micros. I would love to try it at some point, but I'm not going to spend $250 building a rig for 6S, because to build a micro that'll run 6S is a pain in the ass because none of the small 20x20 ESCs will take 6S. Speedix now has, they're going up to 5S, which is great. All of the 6S ESCs are gigantic, and they're really heavy, and they're a pain in the ass to fit in a lot of the micro frames because those frames are tight to keep the weight down. So there you go. Puffy's going to try them on his Acrobat 6S 550 mAh, and the motors are designed for Cinewhoops. Yeah, technically all these 1507s are designed for Cinewhoops. That was one of the first things I asked T-Motor when they sent me these prototypes, is like, you know, what are these meant for? Are these meant for like to be bashers? Are they all-arounders? Are they meant to be really smooth and cinematic? And they said, like, for sure they're meant to be cinematic. And when you look at like their advertising for these motors, it's really obvious. They use the words smooth and cinematic all over the place. So yeah, and I have, as I have found out, as the folks who've been on this stream past couple of weeks, they're not tough at all. They're actually pretty fragile. All of these 1507s. So yeah. Oh, there's just no telling FPV caught me. Not true. There's a Diatone 20x20 D-Shot 1200 6S 4-in-1. Let's look at it. Let me pull that up. That is awesome because that is like the first I've ever heard of an actual 6S capable ESC that's small. All right, so what did he say? 20x20 D-Shot 1200. I think this is it. Let's take a look. Let's have a look. See, so this is still big. I still consider this to be too big for a micro. Basically, so here, this is the biggest I'm willing to go on a micro, mainly because I have a hard time making this fit. I try to build very, very light, and yeah. So when you look at like the 20x20 holes, I don't even like this. I don't even like that these pads hang over this much. This is kind of too big for me. I wish these pads were tucked in. But yeah, any more of a bump out than this around the 20x20 mounting holes, and I just find it to be a real bastard to package when I'm building a micro, to be tight and clean and light and durable. So it's cool that this exists, but there's actually a bunch of these, and I think this is just a copy. I think this is a copy of the one company that makes all the ESCs, and I think this has been around for like a year. There are plenty of ESCs that are like this, that have the 20x20 holes, and then the rest of the board extends out a bunch from those holes. There are a bunch like this, and if you have a build where this fits, awesome. The only sacrifice at that point is weight. This is definitely going to be a little bit heavier. Let's see if they have a weight. 7 grams. It's not too bad. The smaller ones are probably only 5 or 4 grams. Well, I have one. I don't have one without the wires. Whatever. It's definitely going to be a little bit heavier. Probably not a deal breaker. But like I said, most micro builds don't have the space for all that extra meat outside of those 20x20 mounting holes. All right. Jason Peters has a 75S, and when the motors spin up, he loses video. Please help. Okay, so the first thing you want to check on, and this is anybody with anything beta FPV, is the they, at least on the ones that I've got, they use pin headers to connect the VTX to the flight controller, and those pin headers can either come off or they can break. So I would definitely look at that first, move it around, see if you can see any cracks in it or anything like that. Outside of that, the only like electrical reason would be that it's that the whatever is powering that VTX, probably the 5-volt BEC on the board, is dying, and it just can't supply enough juice for both the camera, the VTX, and the flight controller. So it just all goes to hell and shuts down. So those are the two big things that I would look for if I were you. Let me know how that goes. Let me if they're still not figuring out, we can group think it a little bit more. But give that a shot. Stan Rowland asks, have you ever tried the Rotor Geek 1407 motors? If so, what do you think about them? Tommy tried those, and I think they're basically this motor. This is Flight One's version, I believe, of that 1407. They are an old school motor, so you're not going to get a lot of power out of them, but they're smooth. They're a very good freestyle motor. So if you're willing to sacrifice the power and you just want like beautiful smooth footage, they're going to be totally fine for you. Or if you have a lighter build, if it's like a 200 gram build, they will totally work. But yeah, that's just it's an OG motor design, and that's not a bad thing. But there have been advancements in motors in the last couple of years that you're kind of missing out on. If they're really cheap, snag them. I know why you're asking about those, because somebody's blowing those out. Somebody's blowing those motors out. Be careful of the KV. I'm not sure what KV options they have there. All right. Supercell got the SpeedX IS-25, which is 5S. Awesome. Give that 5S a spin. Great Golden Spoon says, 6S motors for a 4S rig for getting into 5-inch without wasting money learning. Yeah. I don't know why you would do that. And unless I've done it before. I filmed a bunch of stunt motorcycle guys doing tricks and whatnot. And I wanted a ton of throttle resolution. So I did that. I put 4S batteries on 6S motors, and like at full throttle, it was like, but like when I'm just like 6 inches off the ground going backwards, trying to film somebody that's doing a wheelie straight at me, that extra little bit of throttle resolution was just amazing. Nabi, I'm supposed to end it at 4, but I have a hard time ending it when I'm supposed to end it, so we'll see. Puffy says the Luminaire F7 20x20 that comes in the FPV crate is 6S capable. Puffy, what about the ESC? Is the ESC also 6S capable? If so, is it small or is it a big guy? All right. If I missed anything, MC Creation says, did you just jump to the end of the chat? I probably did. So if I missed something from you guys, just repost it. It's fine. All right. Okay. iFlight 1507s, what's your opinion? MC Creations asks. Yes, I have flown them on other people's rigs, and I have flown them on my Acrobrat. They have, just like 99% of micro motors, they have a 2mm motor shaft, which is very, very thin for this big of a motor. For this big of a motor, they really need to go to a 2.5mm or 3mm motor shaft. These motors on an Acrobrat are very fragile. The Acrobrat is too heavy of a rig for these motors, basically. Well, for motors with a 2mm motor shaft, I'll say that. 250 plus grams is just too much meat and potatoes to be slamming these motors on that thin of a shaft, and they just bend like crazy. I've broken the T-Motor 1507s are exactly the same, and I've broken or bent 2 of those, and on the first day flying the iFlights, I bent 2 of them in one crash, and they were like bent like bad, real bad. So maybe on like a 200 gram rig they would work, but they make too much power for a 200 gram rig. On a 200 gram rig, all you really need is a 1306, and that's going to give you plenty of power, and it'll save you even more weight. So in my opinion, these T-Motor and Zing 1507s are really only good for exactly what they designed them for. Go fucking figure, right? Which is cinematic style rigs that you're not going to slam. And that's fine. That's great for us to have that option. We haven't had that option ever. And Well, yeah, the OG motors. We haven't had that option with the new school motor design with a lot more power and whatnot. So, yeah, there we go. ZDK saw the TBS stream. New Ethics 1507s have hollow shafts. It's even worse, isn't it? How the hell did they do that? How did they make a 2mm shaft hollow? Maybe they're talking about the top. The only thing I can think of is they're talking about up here, and everybody does that. But if they made this little guy hollow, that's daring. All right, let's do some actual stuff. And and you guys got to tag me if there's an important question. Tag me, and I'll jump on it. But let's do a couple of things that that I titled the stream for. I don't even remember what they were. Maintenance and motor talk, right? Keep your shit in the air. Motor talk is basically just going to be what I've learned in the past couple of weeks about the 1507s, but I also do want to talk about 2306s. And keep your shit in the air is very, very important. So I realized that it would be a good idea to talk about this when someone asked me from the building dive test edit that I put up that you guys might have seen last Monday. Somebody asked me, and I get this question a lot, like, how do you just send your rig out into these like unrecoverable basically situations out over the water? And I do it without even thinking about it. Like it's not like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this. Let me check this and that and the other, and let me turn my transmitter power up, or let me do this, that, and the other. I just do it, and it's because after I fly, I spend a little bit of time just kind of looking at my shit, making sure it's not destroyed, or about to be destroyed, and that's really worked very, very well for me. So I thought it might be valuable to kind of show you guys what I do to figure that out, and just kind of talk about the warning signs. Really, there are signs that your ESC is failing. For example, we were talking earlier about the twitching motor. That's no good. If you arm a quad and one of the motors twitches and then kicks on, don't fly that quad out 1,000 feet over water. Don't fly that quad in downtown Atlanta over, down a 50-story building, right? Fly the quad with an ESC that's never done that, or replace the ESC. So, yeah, it's when you get those for me at least, when I get those warning signs, like, that really sticks out in my mind. I've kind of trained myself to really remember those things and make a mental note of them, of basically just like, this rig is not reliable right now. This ESC is not reliable. Thomas Bird, we will talk about the bearings. That's a great question. So yeah, that's important. That is definitely important. If you don't have if you don't have the budget to just swap the ESC out, I fly the rig until the ESC dies. I only fly the rig when it's in a recoverable spot where I can get it. So yeah, that's a very easy way to kind of fix that. And let's dive into it. Let me move the webcam. I'll give you guys something a little bit more interesting while I'm moving it. I'm sure I'm already demonetized, whatever. It's impossible to make money on Facebook. Okay, let's come over here, and I just want to give you guys something while I'm moving this camera around so you guys don't get motion sick, throw up. So I will play real quickly the video that I was speaking of a second ago. So here you guys go. Full version of this, finished version of this coming soon. We flew deep into the night. Look at this. Through, so in my goggles, this is why I fly the Micro Eagle. It looked like it was daytime in my goggles. I had absolutely no problem flying when it was this dark out because the Micro Eagle has such a big sensor inside of it. It collects more light than pretty much any of the other cameras. So yeah, this is total justification for the most expensive FPV camera, but in my opinion, the best one. There you guys go. Little sample of probably the next edit that's coming out from me. All right, you guys are helping gel out. Thanks for that. All right, so let's dive in. We've got, okay, so I will also not change broken props, or if I do change them, I will leave a prop off at the end of a flying session because this is my, oh, let me move the microphone a little closer. All right. Snoopy, no, you don't have to take the filter out, man. It's just that good. You don't have to take the IR filter out. It's just, yeah, it's just magic, man. What's up, Paulie? How are ya? Okay, so this was my little reminder of, let's see if I can get some better light on here. Yeah, there we go. That's a little better. So this was, on this particular day, this was my reminder to check this motor and just, you know, make sure that this motor is okay, because if it takes a slam hard enough to break an entire blade off, that's a good one. So basically, with this rig, I've got my reminder that I banged up a motor. And to me, what that means is I'm going to take all these props off and I'm going to spin these motors up to see if this one is any more noisy. We've already done that, so I think you guys know how to do that. But basically, pull the props off, plug it into Betaflight, put battery power to it, go to the motors tab, and just slowly spin each one of the motors all the way up to full while you're like leave the rig sitting on your desk, and you'll pretty much be able to tell by ear. You'll be able to hear it. But if you just touch the quad, you'll be able to literally feel which one is vibrating more than the others. And if all of a sudden this one is vibing a lot more than the other ones, I'm going to pull this bell. I'm going to swap the bell. If that doesn't fix it, I'm going to kick the bearings out. And I'm going to fix the, and I'm going to swap the bearings. Somebody had asked how to get the bearings out, which is a great question. Some motors, like these T-Motor 1507 prototypes, have the motors basically glued in. And we were talking last week about maybe like heating up the bearing, or heating up around the bearing to get it to expand, and then maybe cooling down the bearing. I played around with that a little bit. It's so goddamn small in here that I wasn't able to really get it. Most motors, especially like 5-inch motors, the bearings are just pressed in. Well, I will say this, in fairness to the iFlight motors, is that, as you can see, the motors are pressed in. The motors can be removed. And maybe the T-Motor 1507 production ones will have the bearings pressed in. Maybe they just glued them in for the prototypes. I can totally see that as being a thing. But yeah, there's that. So on a 5-inch rig, the way that I do it, and I don't know of a better way. I don't love doing it this way because it does put some wear and tear on the bearing. But this is kind of the best way that I've found to do it. If somebody else has a better way of doing it, for sure let me know. But what I do is, so what I found is the top bearing is always the one that gets the shit kicked out of it. You've got the motor shaft, and when that thing gets hit sideways, you know, that top bearing is going to get a lot more of the load than the bottom bearing, right? The bottom bearing is just basically like the pivot point, which is not good, but it's not nearly as bad as the top being just having all that force jamming the inner race against the side here. So I take the first bearing that I take out is always the top one, because that's the one, the way that I take these out, the first bearing to come out is going to take the most abuse. So I put it down either here, or sometimes I'll put it down on my leg. The reason why putting it down here isn't great because there's not much of a gap. You can't push the bearing all the way out because there's just not there's not much of a gap between the tops of the windings and the bearing. So I'll usually just kind of like put it on my thigh or whatever, and then the bearing will just push into my thigh meat. But what I do is I just take an Allen, M2, M2.5, whatever, play around with different sizes, and I just put it in there sideways. And like, so you can put it all the way through, and then you pull it back, and you'll feel it. If you're pushing, just push against the side, and here, you guys will hear it. Ready? Hear that click? So that click was it coming up over that bottom, the top bearing, and now it's in between those two bearings. So now it's on the edge of that top bearing. Does that make sense, everybody? It's hard for me to show you, but it's yeah, it's now engaged on that top bearing. And then what I'll do is just reduce the angle. I don't want to go in super kind of 45 degrees, because what you can do is you can actually punch right into the guard. This silver part of the bearing on top, it's just a guard. It has, you can remove it and it'll be totally fine. But if you bash into the guard and it pushes up against the balls in there, that's no good. So I kind of try to reduce that angle as much as I can, but there is a limit because it'll start sliding off once that angle has been reduced too much. So you kind of get it to the point where it's nice and firm on that, and then just hit the fucker with a hammer. MC, I know there's a tool, but I don't know if the tool is going to be able to get inside of such a small little thing. And to be honest with you, this method works totally fine. I've only ruined one or two bearings removing them this way. So the reason why this puts more stress on the top bearing is that you're hitting this with a hammer, and it's just got this tiny little contact patch, right? So you're putting all the force into just this one spot on the bearing, which is not great. A better situation is to spread the load out over the entire inner race of the bearing. So what I do is I bang the top one, which is usually bad anyway, bang that one out. And then for the bottom one, which is almost always perfect, now the top one is out, I take a great big anything that's got a great big circular surface on it that's bigger than the inner race. See how nice that fits in there? But it doesn't go through. So this is now engaging. Hold on. Let me give this to you guys a little bit better. This is now engaging and touching the entire, I gotta get the lighting figured out over here. It's touching the entire inner race of the bearing. And so when I smack this with a hammer, if I smack this with a hammer now, it would just blow the bearing up because it's trying to push the bearing inside the stator. But once I have this top bearing out, I can put this guy against the bottom bearing and then just smack it with a hammer, and it safely kicks that bottom bearing out. And that bottom bearing will be in perfect condition when it comes out of there, unless it's already ruined. So that is how I remove bearings. And then to put bearings back in, just take a quick trip to Lowe's and get a couple pieces of hardware here. Get a screw, or whatever the fuck this is. Is this a bolt? I guess this is a bolt because it's a hex head. Get a bolt that's small enough to go through the bearing, and then get a couple washers that are big enough to cover the entire. I literally just brought one of these motors in and just sat there in the hardware section figuring it out. And then just get like a wing nut or a regular nut, and then when you reinstall the bearings, you just use this little guy, and it just safely and evenly pulls the bearing straight in there. I used to do this with a vise, and the vise doesn't push the bearing perfectly straight in there. So yeah, this little like $1 trip to Lowe's pushes the bearing perfectly flat into its little seat, and yeah, works really, really well. So that's how to remove and reinstall bearings, which is a really, really nice thing to know how to do, because buying well, because as you break motors, you're probably going to break more bells than stators. So pop the bearings out of some of these stators, and well, I mean, or you can just hold on to the stator and swap the stator in. But if you run out of stators, you can kick the bearings out of the other ones, and yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. So there we go. Let's dive more into this rig. So I'm not going to do it because I go on rants too much and we're already past 4 o'clock, but I think you guys pretty much know how to spin your motors up in the motor tabs. It's very straightforward. Don't ever, 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 even with a micro, do it with props on. It will bite you and it will send your ass to the hospital. Other than that, the next thing that I'm going to do is grab this guy from motor to motor, and I'm just going to twist it, which I was showing earlier. And when the arms will twist for sure. The twisting motion is where the arms are the weakest. So they will definitely twist. But what you're feeling for is if one of the arms twists more than the others. And it's pretty obvious. So these two are fine. I'm going to take the other two. And, I mean, like, put some force into it. Like, if you're worried about breaking the arm when you're doing this, then it was going to break on a crash and potentially get you stranded somewhere. Like, think about, like, you know, you're flying in an undercover spot, you slam and the arm breaks. You can't fly that. Like, that's stuck there. If that's on the top of a building, that's game over. I mean, you can try to, like, arm it and go full throttle, and maybe the other 3 motors will kick it off the roof if you're super lucky, but probably not. It's probably stuck there. So that's why having arms that aren't delaminated, about to explode, is pretty important. So yeah, these guys are totally fine. Like I said, you will know it. When an arm is delamming and you do this, it will like, it'll really, really bend. So, and it actually kind of feels like this one is starting to get there. Maybe a little bit, but it's still not into a spot. It's still not twisty enough that I'm really worried about it yet. And you can kind of see what I mean. Nah, you can't because it's too dark. But there is a line forming. This arm I'd painted, and what's actually kind of a cool side effect of the paint is that it shows when the arm starts to delam because it cracks the paint as it delams. So technically speaking, everybody that's been doing that cool little trick with the paint marker where they run the color around the edges, they, without knowing it, they've done something that is a really cool, like, early detection sign of arms starting to delam, which is kind of interesting. Other than that, I'm going to do, like, obviously a visual inspection. Just take time, take a minute, just look at it. Look at the GoPro mount, make sure it's not tearing. Look at your camera, make sure it's still solidly in there. Make sure that the screws on the camera haven't loosened up to the point where, you know, you can move it all over the place. If you have a hard crash and the camera rotates way up, it's going to be hard as hell to fly home. Or if it rotates way down, it can also break the plug header off the back of the camera if that happens. So take a look at that. Look at the VTX. Oh, cool. My parents are at the campground. Look at your VTX. Make sure the UFL hasn't ripped off. Look at your antenna. Flick your little antenna. Flick it good. By flicking the antenna, you're going to hear if the circular polarized lobes inside have broken, which is something that definitely happens. Spudnik asks, why do racers use bottom mount and freestyle pilots use top mount? The racers say that with a bottom mount battery, when they crash and it tumbles, that it lands right side up more often than upside down. Freestyle pilots aren't tumbling like that as often. Like, we just slam and explode. So having the battery up on top, well, you know, also because of the GoPro, right? You've got the GoPro hanging out up front. If you bottom mount the battery, you have a really weird distribution of weight. Putting the battery up here behind the GoPro, not only does it correct the CG front to rear, right? Because this is 110 grams all the way on the nose. If you have a bunch of lithium polymer back here, it's going to balance that thing out. but it also balances the CG top to bottom. So your CG ends up being like right pretty much even with the prop line. Whereas with racing, I assume that having a better CG, because bottom mounting a battery is terrible for center of gravity, right? It really throws the center of gravity down pretty far. But it sounds like the racers are willing to sacrifice that for a quad that lands right side up, even with turtle mode, because turtle mode doesn't always work, right? The grass could be too long or blah blah blah. So that's my understanding. Take a look at pin headers. These goddamn cables that they use and the little harnesses, they're only rated for a certain number of plug and unplug cycles, and I've had the damn things unplug after only a couple cycles in the air. And yeah, that's game over. So any plug headers that you've got, what I do is I actually put a little bit of welder's glue on them to hold them together. But if you're not doing that, just make sure they look totally seated. If they're not seated, of course, put them back in there. Check your standoffs, I guess. Make sure your standoffs aren't bent. Check your screws. I don't check the screws all the time because if after every time I flew, I was putting an Allen head on these screws, they would all strip out. So I just kind of give it a little shimmy, give it a little twist. The ones that I do check pretty often are these ones for the arms. These ones for sure loosen up, even if you put a shitload of Loctite on these guys. They still loosen up because they're just dealing with 4 really nasty vibrators on the end of each arm. So yeah, I do check these guys fairly often. And what I'll sometimes do is just like check 1 or 2. Like if that one took a little bit of rotation, I'll check this one. It's kind of okay. Maybe sort of check one of them up front and then move on. You know, I'll check the one that was on this one that blew up, because I know good and well that I flew this back to me on 2 out of 3 blades. So this took a hell of a lot of vibration on its way back to me. So let's check this one if we can get the goddamn... And it's fine. So I find that I have to put 3 applications of Loctite. See, there you go. That's very loose. That one was very, very loose. The outer one is the one that provides most of the strength, but it's obviously just still not good for them to be loose. If I wasn't streaming right now, I would actually take this all the way out and put another coat of Loctite on this screw. Ooh. Yeah, I'm actually going to do that. Like I said, I have to put Loctite on these 3 times. Like, Loctite it, tighten it all the way, fly it, take it home. They're loose, back them out, Loctite it again. When I do that 3 times and I have 3 like applications of Loctite to these screws, at that point it seems to finally be enough for it not to back out. See, this one's totally fine back here. As is this one. So these 2 rear ones are locked down pretty good. These 2 front ones I'm going to re-Loctite. And I think that is about it. Check your receiver antenna, of course. Maybe check your capacitor. Make sure just look at your shit, man. Look at each little part of your shit. Take 5 minutes, and yeah, just give it a little post smash look-see. So I'm gonna leave this one bottom up over here. Here is the 4S rig that I put back together on the last stream. So I know that these motors are fine. Seeing if this rig has anything different about it that'll spark in my brain what else we can actually check. I think those are the main things. Give your batteries some love, of course. And yeah, grab your footage and away you go. So the last thing that I want to talk about on this stream is motors. First, we'll get this out of the way. 1507s, we already talked about them, but for anybody that came in late, T-Motor was cool enough to send me these prototypes of their 1507s a couple months ago. Flew these a good amount. They fly amazing, but the 2mm motor shaft is just not quite strong enough to thrash an Acrobrat with these. 250 grams plus concrete with these motors equals bent motor shafts. 1, 2, 3, and 4 bent motor shafts. And I've probably in the last 2.5 years flown at least 2,000 or 3,000 batteries, and I crash a lot. So when I crash, I can pretty much tell. Like, I can tell if it's a write-off. I can tell if it's a broken arm. And I can tell if it's going to be fine, and I'm going to be able to fly it back to myself. The crashes that killed all 4 of these motor bells were not crashes. Like, I was shocked when I got there and found the bells to be bent, because they were not bad slams. And it makes sense, right? 250 grams is heavy for a micro. It's great for the Acrobrat, and it's why the Acrobrat flies so beautifully for freestyle, but it's a lot of weight for a micro. And 2mm is just not a lot, right? 5-inch rigs are running 4mm motor shafts, and we're still bending them. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with these. For a cinematic rig, they're absolutely beautiful. If you're not flying concrete, or if you just don't push yourself to the absolute ragged limit every single time you fly and just crash over and over and over again. Like, to give you guys an example, it's pretty rare that I get through a battery without slamming at least once. That is just how I fly. That is how I've been able to progress in this hobby as fast as I have. If you don't do that, then these motors are going to be great for you. So there you go. Spudnik says, look at your shit, man. Ciotti 2019. There we go. Still haven't, I got to order the, so this actually, as we talked about last time, this 1505 from Amazon does have a 3mm. You know what? I want to look at the bearings in this. I meant to do this last stream, but I forgot. And I really do want to look at the bearing on this. So we're going to actually, unless there's anybody in the chat that really wants to know about 2306 motors and some of the experience that I've had in the last couple weeks with some of the new ones that are out, maybe I'll skip that and talk about it next time. But if there's anybody out there that wants to hear what I've learned in the last, yeah, I just said it. There's no reason to say it again. Just drop a comment and we'll talk. But I know a lot of the community is going to 2207s, so I don't know if there's anybody that actually cares about 2306s anymore. So what I try to do first is just push the C-clip a little bit. Just loosen it up and just push it a little bit. And I find I can do that with either a flathead and just push on the 2 little nerblets, or these little guys, nerblets. Let's see if I can get it on this one. I should also be doing this in a clear plastic bag so that when this thing shoots off at 7,000 miles an hour, it's able to be found. But I'll be lazy and take a chance here because I'm just trying to do this quickly. So this one's going to be a bastard. This is going to be a tough one. The tolerances are like weirdly tight on this. Which is kind of a good thing, but it's going to make this super annoying. All right, let's see. Hey, I got it. Okay, so I just used the little tips of these guys to just push it back a little bit. And so what I've found, if you can just push it back like a little bit, let me show you guys. If you can just push it back a little bit like that, you can prevent it from shooting off. I'm kind of living dangerously right now because this could kind of shoot off at any time. But if you push it out and you just get it back a little bit like that, put your finger over it or just give it some sort of retention when you push it the rest of the way, and it shouldn't go shooting across the room. And it didn't. There we go. We got it off. That was actually not bad. Usually that's a lot harder. The reason I wanted to do that is I want to see what the bearings look like on this guy. So let's yank this fella apart. Ooh, and I can also measure. So it says 1505 plus? The fuck does that mean? What the hell is 1505 plus? And when I weighed this, this weighs the same amount as these 1507s. So maybe this is like a 1505 and a half or something. But this also lets me show you the difference between a 2 and a 3 mil motor shaft, because it is pretty staggering. I mean, you can just look at a ruler, but I mean, look at that. Look at that difference. Look at that, man. Kidding me? Come on. It also looks like it's wider. Why does it look like it's wider? Nah, it's not. It's not any wider. It's just an optical illusion. So this is also a very notchy motor. You guys might notice that the stator poles are much bigger on this one than this one. This guy has 14 stator poles, which Zing also did on their 1507s, which I think is one of the reasons they're so smooth. This is just like every other micro motor, and it's got, I want to say 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9? I guess these guys have 12 then. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, right. This has 12. 9 is an interesting number, though. I thought they had 10 poles, typically. Let me look at another micromotor here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, look at that, 9. Okay. So it being a 9 stator pole, if you're going to run RPM filtering, you got to remember to change that in your configuration. Tell it that there's 9 stator poles. Wait, no. We want to count the magnets. Yeah, sorry. We want to count the magnets, not the stator poles. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's 12 magnets. That's what I was thinking of. I bet you there's 14 magnets in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yep. Yeah, 14 magnets on here. 12 on the 1505. But man, this thing looks beefy. Is that a washer in there? Oh, really? No way. So this is one of the things I wanted to talk about. Let me get the focus. Well, I can't really fix the focus because this webcam doesn't autofocus worth a good goddamn. So there's a washer in here, and it looks like there's a little rubber grommet. And this is one of the things that seems to be helping with durability in motors lately. So let me get, and it's actually 2 washers, which is interesting. But let me just get these off so I can show you. Well, whatever. I think you guys can see it. See down there? See that little black part? That's a little black rubber grommet. That is awesome. So what the theory behind that is, when this motor takes a slam, and basically any energy, so like most of the hits you're going to take to a motor, you're going to be inverted. So the energy is going to go up into it, right? So if you've got that little piece of rubber in there, that's going to really help this top bearing out, because that's going to absorb that shock load from the concrete slamming on there. So that is really interesting. It also, I can see that it has a nice magnet lip here to keep the magnets in there. The magnets are very big. If you look at like the thickness difference between these magnets, that's another reason that this guy is going to be is as heavy as it is. Let me see if I do have a caliper somewhere, but it's looking like it's 6 millimeters tall. Let me grab a caliper. Here's more of this video. My caliper is absolutely buried. Stand by. got to. So at the end there, I'm going to bump the. Actually, I'm going to chop this down. I already did last night. I chopped it down a bunch. When I wasn't gonna. Yeah, Snoopy, it is. I got there a little bit later, as Kevin was just leaving. But Steele, it was really cool of him. Steele stayed and hung out with me for like an hour when I was flying. Here, that's actually Steele. Hold on. Yeah, we just hung out and bullshitted for a while, and yeah, it was a really good time. He's another motorsport guy, so we have that in common, which is really fun to talk about. Okay, let's caliper this mother. All right. Let's get this guy in here. See if this wants to turn on. I'll probably put it in upside down. Okay, yeah, better. That's better. Okay, let's zero it out and see what's going on with these stator poles here. All right. So, that's pretty tight. Oh, look at that. I had a feeling. 5.86. So, what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is a 1506, which I don't think anybody makes, which is super interesting. Kind of annoying. I would rather this be a 1505 and be lighter, but hey, can't have it all. That's life sometimes. So that's super interesting. It's a 1506, so that really closes the gap between it and the 1507s. To be totally honest with you guys, the weight really bugs the shit out of me on this. I mean, if it's durable, great. But here's what I really want to check for. I want to check the outer diameter. So the Emax makes a 1606 that I ran for like 6 months on my Acrobat. It's a lot of sixes. They make a 1606 with a 3mm motor shaft. The motor shaft never breaks, but the bearings explode constantly. And the reason is they didn't make the outer diameter of the bearing any bigger. So they made the inner diameter bigger. They didn't make the outer diameter bigger. When you do that, the little balls in there have to shrink a lot. So now when you have little tiny shrunken balls, that's what she said. When you have little tiny balls in there and it takes a hit, that's a much sharper little point of contact to dig into the outer race of the bearing. If you guys have never seen a bearing taken apart, the inner and the outer races are kind of curved like this, and then the balls are in between, and it just rotates like that on those little ballsies. So when the little ballsies get smaller, you got to put more of them in there, but they're smaller and they're sharper. So it really digs into that outer, those balls really dig into that outer race, and they leave like little indentations. And when you got a motor that's bearings that are starting to go, you can actually feel that. Like you'll turn it and you'll feel like little notches. Those are the dents that have been left. So I think I have one of these. I think I saw a bearing in here. Yeah. Here we go. So let's see. Did they? They did. They did make the outer diameter bigger. Here. I'll be goddamned. Well, it's looking like if the RPM filters can handle the notchiness of this motor, we might have a winner. It's hard to see, but it's definitely, there's a substantial difference in the outer diameter. That is pretty cool. Well, shit. Hobby mate, look at you go. Damn. I guess I gotta buy 3 more. I just did an Amazon order too. let's put this back in here, clean this up a little bit, and guys, this might be a winner, man. This might be an Acrobrat motor right here. Freestyle Acrobrat motor, I should say. Nice big magnets. Let's check the gap. Ooh, the gap is pretty tight. The air gap between the magnet and the stator is very tight. The only problem with that is if this motor shaft gets bent even a little bit, the magnets will rub against the stator. But I don't know. Proton Go. This is HobbyMate 1505 4300 kV. I also love this kV. 4300 kV on 4S should be enough RPM to make really good power with these Gemfan Wind Dancer 3028s. Wow. Look at HobbyMate. So yeah, this'll be interesting. I'm gonna get more of these, and hopefully I don't lose this C-clip right now, because then instead of buying 3, I'm gonna have to buy 4. But look at that, it popped right back on. Let me say this. This motor has been the easiest to get the C-clip on and off of maybe ever. The C-clip, for whatever reason, just doesn't want to go flying across the room. Like, it just went on there really easily just now. That's kind of nice. Well, shit, guys. Listen to how notchy this is, though. Can you guys hear it when I do this? The volume meter moves. Oh God, I knocked over the mic. Versus one of these guys. The only thing you can really hear is the bearing. I'm spinning it. You guys can't hear it. The HQ 3x303s, Chris E, are extremely durable, but they are not very well balanced. So you will not be able to get nearly as aggressive or locked in of a PID tune with those props versus these Gemfan 3028s. And that means a lot for me. For micros, like the sort of the last oasis for micros is actually getting PID tunes that... No, it's 3mm MC. The HobbyMate motor is a 3mm motor shaft. Everything else is 2mm. I'm not going to refocus it again. Just take my word for it. So, yeah. There's that. What else can I cover real quick? What questions do you guys have? Hurry up. Hurry up. Blast those questions out. Oh, there's one. Sabine Cercel, RCN Power GTS V2 1506 4300 kV. Yeah, Oh, you're right, Sabine. That's right. There is a 1506. You know why I didn't get those RCN Powers, though, is I heard they were very notchy. So since I already have this one, and since it's got a lot of things I like about it, I will get 3 more of these, see if the RPM filtering can handle this amount of notchiness and still give me somewhat of a locked-in PID tune. And if that works, I'll get those RCN Powers as well, and I'll test them. Nobby, what are you asking? Copy and paste it if you don't mind. Oh, do you, Tiago? Are they really notchy like these? James Armstrong's got the... Oh, you've got these, really? Floss 2 4-inch, running 1300 mAh. Good lord, that is a heavy-ass rig. So if these can withstand that abuse, they should be fine for freestyle smashing and bashing. My goodness. So yeah, the only unknown and the thing that I'm most worried about is how much vibration these are going to put into the gyro. RPM filtering is going to have its work cut out for it to handle this amount of vibrations. Nabi has Zing 2206 1850 kV motors. What weight should the quad be? So, I mean, just on 5-inch props in general, I like to stay right around 600 grams all up with the battery. 6S batteries have not become light enough yet for me to hit that number, so I'm at about, well, this is the 4S rig, and this one is at 600 with a 4S 1300 150 gram battery. My two 6S carbon copies of that rig are at like 620 grams with the Session, and then with the Hero it's up at about like 640, 650. So yeah, and that's feeling a little bit heavy. It does have a 3mm shaft, Noah. It's got a 3mm shaft. It's got an O-ring up here between the top of the bell and the bearing. Man, this has a lot of good things going for it. So there's that. If I see any... Oh, 661, you came in late, man. I'm about to shut this motherfucker down. Here's my new lighting setup, if anybody's interested. I got another one of these on the way. This is cool because it's a wide light source. I can get another one and run it vertically here, and that will act like a soft box that is this, basically this big. So I'll have a little bit softer light on me face. Oh, here's the other thing. So this is the crazy thing I wanted to talk about with the 2306s. I hope you guys aren't getting motion sick from me moving this. Oh God! Oh, all hell's broken loose. So my preferred 2306 motor is the T-Motor F40 Pro 2 because of weight. This is a 29 point something gram motor. The only 2306 I know of that's lighter than that are the Steel V3s, but they're a little bit more expensive, and I'm pretty invested in T-Motor F40 Pro 2s at this point. So I basically am buying, and I'm going to ask you guys for your help. If you see T-Motor F40 Pro 2s, I don't even care about the KV. All I really need are bells, because the bells are what I break all the time. If you see F40s for less than 25 bucks a motor, do me a huge favor and let me know, because I'm buying as many of these bells. These are all good bells. I'm just like stocking up on these so that, because yeah, they're not making them anymore. There's like Get FPV has some of the bells in still. There's a couple weird random spots that you can find these, but yeah, if you guys see these, do me a favor and shoot me a quick link, because I like them. So the Zing 2306s are more durable than these for sure, but they're also quite a bit heavier. They're like 33 point something grams or 32 point something grams. So yeah, motor weight. I'm very sensitive to motor weight because I run lighter rigs. And I will show you guys where. So yeah, like to give you some idea. That's a zip. These are all blown up F40 Pro 2 bells, and the reason I wanted to do this is to show you guys where they usually break so that you can make a more educated decision when you're buying motors, because this is important. All right, let me get the focus macroed up. All right, so here are all of the failures, and you're going to see a common thread on these failures. You're going to see something very similar happening to cause these to fail. Here's that first one again, a little bit closer to the camera. That's a hype train. See the flat spots, guys, on all these? So like these motors will take a ton of abuse until you hit this ring. When you hit this ring, it bends it in and it pushes the magnets into the stator, and that's game over. You can try to pry it back out, but this motor is never going to be balanced again. So when you're buying motors, if you're looking for durability, look for either a one-piece bell, where this is all one big piece, or look for something that has a thicker top ring here, like the brand new hype trains have a little bit thicker of a top part there to the motor. But yeah, the majority of these that I've blown up, it's just that same spot over and over again. It's this top ring that's bending in. Here it is on this one. It's bending in to fully kill the motor. So that's what I wanted to show you guys, so that when you're buying 5-inch motors, you can get something that's a little more durable. But these are still pretty durable. These are the most durable motors that I have found at this weight. At some point, I'm certain that I will go to the Zings and I'll just suck it up and deal with the extra weight. But until then, I'm going to rock these till the goddamn wheels fall off. And that, my friends, is where I'm going to end today. Do a quick little lighting setup here. Yeah, that's where I'm going to end today. Any questions that I missed, I apologize. But if you jump over to Patreon, if you message me on Patreon, like, for sure I'll get back to you. Anybody that's willing to donate a couple bucks on Patreon, as far as I'm concerned, I'm now your employee. I'm working for you. So you get love, you get attention. And yeah, that's that. Patreon link down below, affiliate links down below. Look me up on Instagram, Facebook, and here on YouTube. Subscribe, do the bell thing if you want. Do whatever you want. You guys are awesome. Thanks for hanging out. Tomorrow night I'll be back on at 10 o'clock Eastern until midnight-ish. And yeah, I'll answer some more questions. Thanks everybody for coming out. If you're new, thanks for coming over. Thanks for hanging till the end. That's very cool of you. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Later.